Now listen carefully to this. The man who lost everything and found himself. What if the worst thing that ever happened to you became the greatest gift you never wanted? What if the pain you are fighting right now is secretly shaping the strongest version of yourself? And what if the life you dream about can only be built by becoming the person your current self is afraid to become? Listen carefully, because this is not just a story. This is your story. Welcome back to Stoic Gateway. Now imagine a man standing alone in the rain. No audience, no applause, no friends calling, no messages arriving, no victories to celebrate, just silence. The kind of silence that forces a human being to meet himself. His name was Marcus, not the Roman emperor, not a philosopher, just an ordinary man, living an ordinary life. Or at least that is what everyone thought. For years, Marcus had done everything society told him to do. Study hard, work harder, sacrifice today for tomorrow, keep moving, keep grinding, keep chasing, keep proving, keep surviving. And so he did. He worked long hours, missed birthdays, ignored hobbies, delayed happiness, convinced himself that success was just around the corner. He believed the next promotion would make him happy. The next paycheck would make him secure. The next achievement would make him feel worthy. But life has a strange way of teaching lessons nobody volunteers to learn. One cold November morning, Marcus walked into work, expecting an ordinary day. By lunchtime, he no longer had a job. 20 years of loyalty, gone in 15 minutes. No warning, no gratitude, no reward, just a handshake and a security badge collected at the door. Have you ever had a moment like that? A moment where everything you built suddenly collapses? A moment where life reminds you that nothing is guaranteed. If you have, comment below. I am stronger than my circumstances. Because this story is for you. Marcus drove home in silence. His hands gripped the steering wheel. His mind raced. Questions attacked him from every direction. What now? How will I pay my bills? What will people think? What if I never recover? What if my best days are behind me? Fear is a fascinating thing. It rarely attacks reality. It attacks imagination. The Stoics understood this over 2,000 years ago. The great philosopher Epictetus taught that human beings are disturbed not by events, but by their opinions about events. Marcus had lost his job. That was reality. But the story he was telling himself about losing his job was creating his suffering. And most people never realize the difference. The obstacle itself is rarely the thing that destroys us. It is our interpretation of the obstacle. When Marcus arrived home, he sat in his car for nearly an hour. The engine was off. The world outside continued moving. People walked by. Dogs barked. Cars passed. Life continued. But inside that vehicle, time felt frozen. Eventually, he walked into his house. His wife looked at him. She knew immediately. The human face often reveals truths words try to hide. What happened? 3 simple words. 3 devastating words. And for the first time in years, Marcus cried. Not because he lost a job, but because his identity was attached to it. He didn't know who he was without it. Many people spend their entire lives building careers while neglecting character. They build resumes, but forget to build themselves. The Stoics warned about this constantly. They taught that everything external can be taken away: money, status, recognition, possessions, power, but virtue, wisdom, discipline, courage, these belong to you. These cannot be stolen. And life was about to teach Marcus exactly why that matters. Weeks passed, then months. Interviews came and went. Rejections piled up, savings disappeared, confidence eroded. Every morning became harder than the previous one. At first, Marcus fought reality. Then he blamed reality. Then he hated reality. But eventually, he became exhausted. One evening, he found himself sitting on an old park bench watching the sunset. An elderly man sat beside him. Neither spoke for several minutes. Finally, the old man broke the silence. "You look like you're carrying a mountain." Marcus laughed bitterly. "You have no idea." The old man smiled. "Actually, I probably do." Something about his voice felt different. Calm, steady, grounded. The kind of voice that only comes from surviving storms. Marcus told him everything. The job loss, the fear, the uncertainty, the frustration, the shame, the feeling that life had betrayed him. When he finished, the old man nodded slowly. Then he asked a question Marcus would never forget. "Who would you be if none of those things happened?" Marcus frowned. "What do you mean?" The old man looked toward the horizon. "If life never challenged you, if nothing ever went wrong, if every desire was immediately granted, who would you become?" Marcus didn't answer, because he didn't have one. The old man continued, "Comfort creates weak people. Difficulty creates strong people. Storms create sailors. Resistance creates muscle. Loss creates wisdom." Then he stood up. Before leaving, he said one final sentence. "Your life isn't falling apart. It's being rebuilt." And then he walked away. Marcus never saw him again, but those words remained. Your life isn't falling apart, it's being rebuilt. Think about that. How many times have you mistaken transformation for destruction? How many times have you called growth a crisis? How many times have you resisted the very experience that was trying to make you stronger? Human growth rarely feels good while it is happening. A seed must break before it becomes a tree. Iron must enter fire before it becomes a sword. And human beings must face adversity before discovering their true strength. The next morning, Marcus did something different. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" he asked, "What is this teaching me?" Everything changed, not immediately, not magically, but fundamentally, because questions direct attention, and attention shapes experience. For the first time, Marcus stopped focusing on what he lost. He started focusing on what he could become. He began reading Stoic philosophy every morning, every evening, little by little, page by page, idea by idea. He discovered that life was never supposed to be easy. The Stoics never promised comfort. They promised strength. They never promised certainty. They promised resilience. They never promised control over events. They promised mastery over response. And that distinction changed everything. Marcus realized he had spent years trying to control outcomes. Now he began focusing on controlling actions. He couldn't force opportunities, but he could improve himself. He couldn't guarantee success, but he could guarantee effort. He couldn't control tomorrow, but he could control today. And that realization gave him something powerful: peace. Not because his problems disappeared, but because his relationship with those problems changed. If this message resonates with you, type "I choose growth" in the comments, because the next part of this story may be exactly what you need to hear. Marcus had no idea that the greatest challenge of his life was still ahead. And neither do most of us. Because life doesn't test us once. Life tests us repeatedly, not to punish us, but to reveal us. The question is not whether challenges will come. They will. The question is who you become when they arrive. And in the next chapter of Marcus's journey, life would demand an answer. One that would force him to choose between becoming bitter or becoming extraordinary. Most people believe growth happens when everything is going well, when motivation is high, when energy is abundant, when confidence is overflowing. But that is not where transformation happens. Transformation happens in darkness, and it happens in uncertainty. It happens when nobody is watching. It happens when every excuse feels justified and every reason to quit feels logical. And Marcus was about to enter the darkest winter of his life. The weeks turned into months. The months turned into nearly a year. Every morning looked the same. Wake up, send applications. Wait, receive rejection. Repeat. At first he remained optimistic, then hopeful, then frustrated, then exhausted. Eventually, he stopped expecting good news altogether. The strange thing about suffering is that it rarely arrives all at once. It arrives in layers. One disappointment, then another, until eventually you begin questioning everything. Marcus questioned his abilities, his future, his purpose, his worth, and perhaps the most dangerous question of all: what if I am not enough? Have you ever asked yourself that question? Be honest, not out loud, but deep inside, late at night, when nobody could hear, when the world became quiet, when the mask came off. What if I am not enough? That question has haunted human beings for thousands of years, and it destroys more dreams than failure ever could. Because failure hurts, but self-doubt paralyzes. Failure says, you lost. Self-doubt says, you are a loser. Failure attacks outcomes. Self-doubt attacks identity. And Marcus was losing that battle. One evening, he sat alone in his living room. The television was on, but he wasn't watching. The room was filled with noise, but his mind was louder. Negative thoughts marched through his head like an army. Look at you. You've failed. Others are moving forward. You're falling behind. You should have achieved more. You should have become more. You should have done better. Every human being knows this voice. The inner critic. The voice that appears whenever life becomes difficult. The voice that pretends to protect you while secretly destroying your confidence. The Stoics knew this voice well. That is why they trained themselves to examine every thought. Not every thought deserves belief. Not every emotion deserves obedience. Not every fear deserves attention. One night, Marcus opened a notebook. On the first page he wrote, "What can I control?" Nothing more, just that question. At first the page remained empty. Then slowly he began writing. "I can control my attitude. I can control my effort. I can control my discipline. I can control my learning. I can control my actions. I can control my response." And suddenly something remarkable happened. His problems were still there, but they looked smaller. Because clarity creates power. When you focus on what you cannot control, you become helpless. When you focus on what you can control, you become dangerous. That notebook became his daily ritual. Every morning, every evening, the same question: what can I control? And little by little, his mind began changing. Not because life became easier, because he became stronger. Then life delivered another blow. His car broke down, a major repair. Money he didn't have. Stress he didn't need. Frustration he couldn't avoid. Marcus sat on the side of the road, staring at the dashboard. For a moment, the old version of himself returned. Anger, self-pity, victimhood. Why me? Why now? What next? Then he remembered something he had read from Marcus Aurelius. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. The obstacle is the way. Simple words, powerful truth. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid obstacles. The Stoics learned to use them. Every challenge contains a lesson. Every setback contains a gift. Every difficulty contains hidden strength. The obstacle is not stopping you. The obstacle is shaping you. Standing beside that broken vehicle, Marcus made a decision. He would stop asking life for comfort. He would start asking life for growth. That single decision changed the trajectory of his future. Because comfort and growth rarely travel together. The strongest trees grow where the winds are harshest. The strongest minds grow where the challenges are greatest. The strongest souls emerge from the deepest struggles. Human development has always followed this pattern. Pressure, adaptation, growth. Pressure, adaptation, growth. Nature operates this way. Muscles operate this way. Character operates this way. Life operates this way. Yet modern society teaches the opposite. Avoid discomfort. Avoid struggle. Avoid pain. Avoid challenge. But what if challenge is the very thing you need? What if the struggle you're trying to escape is creating the person you're trying to become? That thought stayed with Marcus. And over time, he noticed something strange. His external circumstances had barely improved, but internally, everything was changing. He was becoming calmer, more patient, more disciplined, more resilient. The things that once shattered him now merely tested him. The things that once terrified him now strengthened him. The things that once controlled him now taught him. And that is when he discovered one of life's greatest secrets. The goal is not to eliminate adversity. The goal is to become greater than adversity. Think about that for a moment. Most people are waiting for life to become easier. The Stoic waits for himself to become stronger. One path creates dependence, the other creates freedom. One rainy afternoon, Marcus visited a local library. Not because he had nowhere else to go, but because he wanted to keep learning. While browsing the shelves, he noticed a young man sitting alone, head down, shoulders slumped, eyes filled with defeat. The sight felt familiar because he was looking at who he used to be. The young man eventually approached him. They started talking. The conversation lasted nearly 2 hours. The young man explained that he had failed university, lost direction, lost confidence, lost hope. Marcus listened carefully. Then he shared something surprising. Not advice, not motivation, not solutions, just his story. For the first time, he realized something important. His suffering had become useful. His pain had become wisdom. His struggle had become service. The challenges he once hated were now helping someone else. And suddenly, Marcus understood something profound. The purpose of hardship is not merely personal growth. It is also contribution. The strongest people are often those who suffered deeply and chose to turn that suffering into guidance for others. That is why some of the most inspiring individuals in history endured extraordinary hardship. Because pain can create compassion. Failure can create wisdom. Loss can create understanding. The wound becomes the source of strength. The scar becomes the source of leadership. The struggle becomes the source of purpose. And perhaps that is why you are watching this video today. Maybe you think your challenges are meaningless. Maybe you think your setbacks are holding you back. Maybe you think your suffering has no purpose. But what if your current struggle is preparing you to help someone you haven't even met yet? What if your story is still being written? What if the chapter you're living through right now becomes the chapter that changes everything? Comment below. My struggle is shaping me. Because the moment you understand this principle, your relationship with hardship begins to change forever. As winter continued, Marcus became obsessed with one question. Not how to get rich, not how to become famous, not how to gain status, but how to become unshakable. He studied the lives of great philosophers, warriors, leaders, explorers, thinkers, and he noticed something remarkable. None of them became great because life was easy. They became great because life was difficult. The challenge was the training. The struggle was the preparation. The adversity was the teacher. And then one morning, almost exactly a year after losing everything, Marcus received a phone call. A new opportunity, a new beginning, a new door opening. But what happened next surprised him. The job wasn't the victory. The victory was the person he had become before the opportunity arrived. Because if that opportunity had come a year earlier, he would have received it as a weaker man. Now he was ready. Now he was capable. Now he was prepared. Life had not been delaying his success. Life had been preparing him for it. And as Marcus hung up the phone, he smiled. Not because his problems were finally over, but because he finally understood something most people never do. The greatest achievement in life is not success. It is becoming the type of person who can handle success. The greatest victory is not getting what you want. It is becoming who you need to become. And the greatest transformation happens when you stop asking, when will my life change? And start asking, who must I become? Because every great life begins with that question. And in the next chapter of this journey, Marcus will discover that external success is only the beginning. the real battle. The battle for mastery, the battle for purpose, the battle for inner freedom was only just beginning. And so the question is no longer whether life will challenge you. It will. The question is whether those challenges will break you or build you. Marcus learned something that most people never discover. The storms were never the enemy. The struggle was never the enemy. The setbacks were never the enemy. The real enemy was the belief that life was supposed to be easy. Because the moment he stopped demanding comfort from life, he began developing strength. The moment he stopped asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and started asking, "What is this teaching me?" everything changed. And perhaps that is the lesson waiting for you today. Maybe you're facing uncertainty. Maybe you're carrying a burden nobody knows about. Maybe you're fighting a battle in silence. But remember this: the strongest version of you is not found on the other side of comfort. It is found on the other side of struggle. The person you're becoming is being forged right now through every disappointment, every setback, every sacrifice, and every difficult decision. So before you leave this video, I want you to do something powerful. In the comments below, write, "I will not break." Not for me, not for the algorithm, for yourself. Make it a declaration, a commitment, a reminder that no matter what life throws at you, you will continue moving forward. And if this story resonated with you, make sure you subscribe to Stoic Gateway and join thousands of others who are choosing discipline over excuses, growth over comfort, and wisdom over distraction. Because this journey is just beginning. Now don't stop here. The next video appearing on your screen may be the most important lesson you hear this week. In that video, we'll go even deeper into the Stoic principles that transform ordinary people into unshakable individuals capable of thriving in any circumstance. So click that video now. Stay with us. Continue the journey. And remember, life doesn't happen to you. Life happens for your growth. I'll see you in the next lesson. This is Stoic Gateway.